Bobby Umar. I'm the founder of Thought Leadership Writing Club, and I'm excited to start off International Women's Day today with three amazing women leaders who I know personally. Two I've met in person. One I can't wait to meet in person. And today we're going to talk about actually, women who champion other women, who help support other women. And these three here are outstanding women who are doing just that, and they're helping other women stand out as well. So I'm excited to introduce them all. Actually, I have them introduce themselves, but if you are listening in, feel free to join the chat. This is being live streamed everywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. But if you have questions or comments, we want you to comment below. Let us know where you're calling in from, where you're listening in from, and what questions or things you have about anything that the speakers bring up. So I'm going to go quickly into your introduction. So let's start with you, Diana. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So great seeing you out here. Hi, Kamara. Hi, Sweta. So great to see you again. So I'm Diana YK based here in Toronto, Canada, and I'm a coach, speaker, and a business mentor where I help people stand out, get hired, and earn more.
Awesome. That was short and sweet, but super duper. Let's go to Kamara.
Hi, Bobby. Hi, Diana. Hi, Sweta. Good to share the stage with all of you, good friends. I'm Kamara Toffolo. I'm a resume writer and job search strategist, and I help people land great fitting gigs. And I'm on a quest to make job searching less hard, because it shouldn't be as hard as it is.
Awesome, thank you. And Sweta, go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Sweta Ragmi, CEO and founder of Teach and Do, and I teach do's and don'ts to job seekers, especially focusing on immigrants who are newcomers in Canada, also laid off survivors, and people who want to go where they're celebrated. So there I am, making an impact, at least, leaving corporate life behind, and I've seen it all, so here I am to fix those hiring gaps.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks so much for all of you, three of you being here. And, today we're going to cover different topics. We're going to talk about how to embrace equity, how to talk about the challenges women face on the LinkedIn platform with their career growth, and of course, talk about how we support and empower more women. So, one of the things I want to get into is, let's start with a really simple question, which is, International Women's Day is here, and obviously this is Women's History Month. I'd like to start by asking each of you, what does International Women's Day and Women's History Month mean to you, in terms of any, the impact or what your thoughts are on it. So let's start with you, Kamara.
What International Women's Day means to me is two words really come to mind, and they both start with E, and that's empowerment and equity. So all about women stepping into demanding and asking for what they're worth, which is so much.
And again, I want to keep this more free flowing, so don't have to need me to the rest of you just feel free to pipe in. So anyone else, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you want to go next, Diana?
Sure. So for me, International Women's Day, it's part of reflecting on how far we've come, celebrating, the history and how much further we need to go, right? Big part when I think about this year's theme of embracing equity and why I'm so passionate about it. Three things. One is really about amplifying women's voices. Second is really about advocating for equal pay and transparency. And third is really asking for more and really challenging the status quo. And we can talk more about this later on, what that really looks like. I'm really big on supporting women. Even this year, I decided as a coach for the last 10 years now, I decided to found my own business mastermind to support other women so that they don't feel alone, to be able to share behind the scenes with each other so that we can empower each other to rise and thrive together there.
That's amazing. How can I just close that? Two ladies have just done it all. Whatever I wanted to just say it, they just said it. All I got to do is say this to people watching around the world. And this is being streamed everywhere. Kamara's live, Diana's live, my YouTube channel, Teach and Do. You can go and watch it there as well. My LinkedIn profile, my Facebook and everything. That's a good part of it. Look how the technology has done this favor to all of us, right? So, women are born, women and men, they're born together on the day that everything is what, we got it. But then once you move up or ladder, or once you grow up, the society tells us otherwise. Men can do this thing, women can do this thing, right? And I think it's a society putting up perceptions and stereotyping the gender. And this is why we're celebrating Women's Day, because there's no need to celebrate this, but we're doing it because we finally realize that, you know what, there is a pay gap, there's a gender gap. Let's talk about it. And it's people like Bobby Umar and those men out there who support us and who invite us to these kind of events to share our stories. So thank you so much. So women's empowerment, it just doesn't happen through the women. I think allies, men's are all our allies as well. And we're extremely blessed that we're here today to talk about it.
And I think that goes to also the conversation around, you know, all of us are very diverse. We definitely represent people of color as well. And I think one of the things I've learned from my father, I mean, I'm speaking as a brown guy, but basically that it's important for us to, you know, speak up and have our voice heard. Now, from a Women's History Day perspective, my whole goal in life is to champion and empower women. I think of my wife, I think of my mom, I think of my daughter. And I think I'm a huge proponent of allyship, not just as the label, but what are you doing to act on it? What are you doing to educate yourself? What are you doing to learn? What are you doing to grow as a person? Then what are you doing to act out there and support people and champion? And for me, you know, when people comment terribly on women on LinkedIn, I'm out there commenting back, same with Twitter. When I'm doing events, I'm running this live stream. We're doing our social audio rooms. I'm doing an event in Toronto LinkedIn Local on March 30th, again, to empower and focus on helping women voices. So for me, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do in terms of being an ally. I think it's important for a lot of men out there to understand this and be better allies. So, and starting with that, it segues nicely into the issue of equity, because I know one big issue is equity in pay. And so, Dan, I want to send this to you. You know, let's talk a bit about that. What's going on with that situation? What can we do to create an equal paying field for women?
Yeah, such a great question. So we know that there's still the pay equity gap here. I'm going to share some stats. This was pulled out earlier from the Canadian Women's Foundation. So I'm going to provide some stats from a Canadian perspective here. Is that 89 cents of what women working full-time and part-time make for every dollar men make. Second is 59.3% of white men's earnings that racialized women make on average. 16% of women and gender diverse people with a physical disability who report being fairly paid compared to their peers. So there's still a pay gap. So it's going to take like over 200 years to close this economic gender gap. So I think this is why it's so important to talk about it. And so when we talk about owning our value and worth, like this is something I'm really passionate about, is helping people to be confident in owning their value. And there are 3 steps that I always recommend to take to be more confident in owning your value. First is really about identifying your value, like knowing what makes you unique, what makes you stand out, what are your superpowers. That's the first step, is really identifying that. If you're not sure, take tests like the strengths assessment, the Gallup assessment, to identify your top 5 strengths, or send out a survey to people to identify that. The second step is really around believing in your value. Like once you identify it, you may not believe this is, you know, what your value, but a big part is going to be your mindset and believing yourself, like really having those affirmations helping you believe that. And the third step is really around voicing your value. Like once you've identified this and believe it, you got to start communicating and voicing your value so that you are being seen, that you're being heard, and people see you as a high performing talent there. So I think there's this quote, you probably heard of this, is that it's not just about being the best at what you do, but being best known, so that you can also attract those right opportunities there. And when we talk about owning our worth, like ties back to the pay here, is I believe that the first step is also educating ourselves, of understanding based on the type of job you're in or the profession that you're in, like what is that salary range, or what are the fees and rates, to educate yourself on that so that you're familiar with what's the low end, what's the high end. Are you within that range, or are you below that range, so that you know that you can ask for more there. And so that's something for me that I'm passionate about this year as well, being a woman entrepreneur. Like, you know, I've been committed, like this morning, like I shared it with my group of mastermind ladies. Like I shared with them, like, what are my speaking rates? What's my coaching rate? So that we can empower each other. Like, hey, this is what's possible for all of us there.
Feel free to share your own thoughts. I don't want to have to keep directing this. I want you guys to talk. I
Okay,
only
so,
pipe in when I want to direct the conversation.
all right, I
you
can
go
go
ahead.
next because like I actually had that stat as well, Diana. So 89 cents of every dollar a man makes, and then out of that, actually, the racialized and indigenous women even make less, which is 67 cents, right? When the men's are making like $1, and then when it comes to percentage of the management role, it's only 35%. And also when it comes to senior management, is a really minimal. Women of color make up only 6.2% in board executive as well. And out of that, only 1% make, like when it comes to Black, Indigenous, POC, LGBTQ community and everything, it's less than 1%, right? So that's kind of like sad. And we really have to talk about it. And I think the great news for Canadian is BC actually is now there's a salary transparency. It just came in the right time. I tweeted about this, tagging all the politician and media as well today. Hey, like we need this for whole Canada. Why are we not talking about this, right? I'm okay if I'm posting the job. I'm okay to actually put it on the job description as well. Now, coming back from the hiring world where I was leading the team, that's when it hit me. I think a little bit later on, because I never negotiated. I didn't even think that I was allowed to negotiate. It was just given to me. I got promoted 9 times within 12, years in my life. And I was leading the team at the same time. My team, nobody negotiated it. It was just drafted to us from HR talent acquisition team and given to us, and everybody signed it. Good thing it was like all across the board. Everyone was making more, similar amount, the same band, which is fantastic. That's why we didn't negotiate. Then coming to the, when moving up the ladder, what I realized was I was doing this great project. It was given to me. I was selected, and there was a talk about, okay, if the project goes well, when you work through the IBM with the IBM consultant, and we're gonna just create the new role for you and see we can actually leverage your talent. And I did it, and I didn't even realize when the IBM consultant actually put it on the data, the numbers, like we saved more than $1 million within 6 weeks for the company. What an eye-opener, right? And that was like, wow, I did that within 6 weeks. I cannot believe it. Nobody trained us how to pull the data, how to do the cost analysis and stuff like that. And then when they came back to me, they said, okay, we're going to revamp. We're going to promote you into this role. You're going to take over. We're totally restructuring it. And here is it. And they came back with a job offer. And guess what happened to me? I talked to my manager. She was a lady manager. She inspired me. She's now my mentor. And I talked to her, like, I hope there's a salary increase on it because I've never asked for it. I moved up and I know I took everything, whatever was given to me. I'm really privileged to be there. I hope there's some salary increment for me, right? And she's like, that's a good point. I hope so too. She was brand new external hire director. She did not know the internal policy. And she's like, and I said, could you talk about that when you have the next meeting? Extremely supportive. And that gave me confidence, right? When she said, I think you should ask for it, right? She didn't give me the dollar value figure at all. And then when my director came to me, put it on the paper, exactly the same money that I was making. I was so disappointed, but I was like, what do I do? Because at that point, I was this close to saying, I don't need it. I'm happy where I am, right? But I strategized it. And I said, you know what? I've done this. There's a number within 6 weeks. And I know this is a completely different role. And I would like you to revisit my salary and come back to me within 1 day so we can work together. Best boss ever. He's like, you know what? I didn't see that coming. Thank you for letting me know. I'll come back to you. No question asked. They gave me the bump, highest bump ever. Had I not asked that strategically, now you have to realize that what's at the stake as well. I did not know him at all. I had that reputation built in already. I never had a guts to actually ask, right? And that's what happened to me. And later on, what happened was when I was hiring for my new people, QAs, I got the new manager, senior manager, who probably didn't negotiate, right? And then when I wanted to bump in the new hire, guess what he told me? He's like, no, it's a lateral move. Don't give them. I put my foot down. As a leader, I went back to HR. I said, I'm going to give maximum because I saw the gap. Guys, there's like 20,000 gap in there. I said, you know what? I'd like to go maximum. And I did that. That's what we got to do as a manager, right? People do not have a voice. So you got to fight for your people. If you're leading team, it's your responsibility to look at the pay gap. I don't care. Do it yearly and do the best, because people don't know what's out there. I did not know. Nobody fought for me. I had to fight it for myself. And that's how you close the gap.
That's great, Sweta. Good for you.
Such a great story. I love these stories. Sorry,
amazing.
yeah. I feel like this is part of what you said, like for managers, like the fight for others as well. I feel like part of my job as a coach, because and a former recruiter, I've seen so many data points of salaries out there. I have an idea of how far employers can go. And I remember one time when a client of mine, she was making a pivot from nonprofit to tech at Amazon, and she was already getting a pay bump of about 50% pay bump. But I knew she could push higher just given my data point of what I know people were getting. I mean, she was so afraid to ask, because when you think about this, like I'm going to ask the audience, how many of you are afraid of negotiating when it comes to, your job offer? Like most people are afraid of negotiating because what? They're afraid that they're going to rescind the offer, or they may appear too greedy. But when I coached her through of what is possible, she was able to get 5 figures more. And she was blown away by that. In her mind, she's already making more, so she should just settle for it. But I knew that was just the bottom of the entry number of what they're offering. And so part of it is like, getting that intel of knowing what are really the industry standards. Like, are you at the bottom, or are you at the middle, or are you at the top range there? And that's going to give you confidence to negotiate more there.
Absolutely. And I think knowing those ranges is what's the most empowering, and knowing kind of what the market is offering is the most empowering information that you can
to negotiate more there.
Sorry, I was just looking at my.
Okay. Anyway, the knowing the hard data is the most empowering information that you can have and bring to the negotiating table, because then you're not making it about, well, I feel I deserve this. It's this is what the market has an appetite for. And I'm just going to plug a video that Diana is in on my channel that's all about salary negotiations. A panel of 3 women from a recruiting background, including Diana, and we cover some great topics if you're looking for a go-to resource for salary negotiations.
And this is a really great discussion. There's already a question in the chat. People are chatting and commenting. We appreciate all the comments. My question is, how do you know what is the ceiling number?
When you say what's the ceiling number, meaning the pay gap, what's the highest one?
How high can you go? Yeah.
I think it depends. I can speak based on my lived and tested experience as a hiring manager who has seen the pay gap and pay range in there, right? Even it was so hard for me to understand within the same team I'm leading why there's like 20,000 gap on it, right? So I didn't understand that. And HR is like, that's just there. And I think leaders need to be trained as well. And what I really hate to see is pay gap is so high that for people who are applying, they have no clue why is it high. Okay, well, maybe the solution for people to understand is, okay, if you have a certifications, let's break it down, right? If you're entry level, if you have 2 to 5 years of experience, you get this. And if you have certification, you get this, right? If you have license, you get this, right? I think you need to make it so transparent that people applying for it, they can self-disqualify themselves if they want to, or maybe upgrade on those, because I would hate to see people not applying for the role that they're qualified for just because they wanted certifications. Maybe the certification was not the mandatory requirement, but people are not told about that, right? We need to be better as a corporate, people like from the X world, that we need to tell them, okay, break it down. The ceiling is this high because these kind of people are going to make this only, and it's only available for these kind of people. So that would be very, I think we have a long way to go when you talk about the salary transparency. Even that happened to me when I left I was good friend with one of the friends who was externally hired. She only had 1 year of leadership, whereas I had 10 years of leadership. I was always internally promoted, right? And then I was shocked when she told me that she made more than me, which is $10,000 more than me, guys, like, external hire. That was like such a, I was happy for her. She didn't negotiate. She was just like offered. And you know how that happens when there's internal staff and external, it's bullshit. Pardon me, right? Like when corporate world gets away with it and saying, well, external gets higher, internal gets lower. Why would that be? You're doing the same job. Like, don't give me that bullshit of, you know what, internals are not like capable. Yes, we're capable. So you gotta, if people are doing the same kind of job, pay them exactly the same money, right? Or just go with, okay, this is what you get because you have this on top of what internal staff do not have. That's my take.
Wow, no, this is great. You guys are sharing some really great information. Someone shared a really long comment. I just want to, it's a happy International Women's Day from Supragya from Nepal, and she's in cybersecurity, and she says a lot of discrimination, gender discrimination there. And her question is that the challenge, though, she never gets hired and gets passed over, so it demotivates women and gives rise to imposter syndrome. So her question is, what do you think can bring change in the thoughts of people so that more women get encouraged to get into tech?
Is Supriya, like, are you, so when you say you're from Nepal, are you still in Nepal or have you moved to a different country? Because I don't know how, like, how the people in Nepal actually negotiate. I don't know how do they deal with
I think she's in Nepal, actually. So.
She is in Nepal.
Yeah.
And I come from there, and I know, like, I come from there. No offense, I was supposed to be cooking in kitchen, pleasing my husband, my in-laws, right? But did I do that? No, right? There's nothing wrong with it being a housewife. It's extremely hard. Like, I'm not looking down on them. My mom is one. My mom, like, there are so many people I admire, right? But like, it's tabooed, especially when you're going to the industry like that. Yes, people are intimidated, and people don't think that you're the right candidate, right? And I think this is where we got to keep on asking question, why until we get the answer. And you know what, you need to find the right employers, and there are things that we can control, which is our mindset, but we cannot control other people's mindset. And we're gonna just ask, like, why is my male partner getting paid more? What could I do? Is this something self-reflectancy? Is this something that I am doing? Can I learn? Is it a certification? Is it a license? Is it the experience? What can I do? How can I get there, instead of saying, well, I deserve it, right? It's always about going back and sharing like what that person has that I don't have, so I can get there. And that's my strategy, probably. What are your take, ladies?
I mean, I think, part of it is finding people you look up to who work in tech, who is maybe in Nepal. You can also get some insights or mentorship, some guidance, like find your own community as well. Like make some noise there, like showcase who you are, be known of your work and your value. Part of it is I think, building your brand, creating content, surrounding yourself with a community of people who have a similar passion as you, so that you can all rise together there.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Let me ask if I can say something here, and I'll start with Kamara. I mean, all of you have built up some really fantastic platforms on LinkedIn, but there must have been a point in the beginning where it was harder to get going, or maybe you were, second guessing yourself. Can you talk about that, Kamara, in terms of, what that felt like and how you kind of overcame that?
Definitely in the early goings, I had imposter syndrome, especially making the shift into building my business. I have a non-traditional background. So a lot of it had to do, in terms of gaining visibility and credibility, was aligning with good people like yourself, Bobby. And so, and Diana and Sweta. Yeah, that's how I overcame it, is I kind of piggybacked on other people and learned from them until I felt like I had enough confidence to really make a go of it on my own. Going back to what Sweta was commenting on in terms of gaining skills, certifications to ensure that you have the credibility to back up the salary that you're asking for. I apprenticed under people. I learned in order to, until really the imposter syndrome part started to fall away. And then I felt like I was able to give it a better shot and really be a little more bold in my approach to being seen.
And I
So-
remember too. I remember too a long time ago. Kamara and I worked together on the DYPB conferences, and I remember she took over leading the conference. And I tell you, she was a force, man. I loved it. And you know, when she had that authority, and she just took off. Oh my gosh, it was just so amazing. I want to switch to Diana, because Diana, ever since I met you in the very beginning, like years ago in Toronto, you've always been very confident. I've never actually seen you where you're like, oh, I'm not feeling confident. So maybe you can take me back in the day when you found your, you know, that confidence. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I celebrated my 12 years in business this year in January. And I would say growing up, I wasn't really confident. I even had like a soft voice in class. And part of the work I do now is all about helping people stand out and be confident in owning their value. And so the way I grew my confidence over the years, especially the last 5 years, I would say a big part is like really sharpening my skills, like getting better and better at what I do. For example, if I look back to my videos 10 years ago till now, I sound so much more different. Like before I had much a softer voice and I would have like an uptick in my voice. Now I'm a lot more assertive. And I know part of it is also sharpening those skills, becoming better and better, like avoid the ums and ahs. Second is, I would say, is really doing great work, right? Part of it in the last several years is really helping clients like get the results. I remember a coach asked me 2 years ago, like this was during the pandemic, beginning of 2020. He asked me a question, like, how much more money did I help my clients make? When he asked me that question, it was a flip question. And I was like, wow, when I actually calculate that, I helped my clients made a few $1 million in the last few years, like incremental of salary. And that really conferred my own value of the impact and value of my work. So part of it is really seeing your own value and be like, wow, like this is amazing, right? That people investing in my work and coaching is valuable, and acknowledging myself for that there. So I think that that's a second piece. And then the third piece, I think, is over the years, I really believe in the importance of giving back. So for me, I'm really big on surrounding myself with people. I'm always like networking, connecting with people. Like the last several years, I've made so many friends on LinkedIn, like people I've never met before. Like I have a group of women who's coming to me to Cancun who I've never met in person. And so for me, I really believe in giving back, adding value, helping each other out, featuring others, giving shout outs, introducing, making introductions. And by doing that, I see that I'm making an impact, and that confidence grows as well.
That's great. And I think we're going to Cancun, right? And we don't even like, we've just literally collaborated on LinkedIn, and that's how, and we do kind of like similar thing, but differently, right? And we all have our superpower, and there's no competitions. And I always say, it's a collaborations, not the competitions. Yeah. And when women try to lift each other up, it's fascinating because, you know, if women's are catfighting and bringing each other down, then, you know, who are we to question men's, right? Like, you know, here we are as a woman, we can't even get along with the same gender. There's an issue. So I think we got to lead by example to the women. Hey, you want confidence? This is what I got, where I got it from. So coming back to me, how did I get the confidence? I wouldn't be thinking like so many years ago. I was a new immigrant in Canada. I was born and raised in Nepal, right? Went to English school, but then again, I had to take an ESL course here, went to colleges, couple of ESL courses. Was I ashamed? And I was, but I learned a lot. And then I climbed up the ladder, and I felt lonely there. South Asian women in a leadership role, not much of people there. And I hardly spoke up. It was like, yes, 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 all the time, right? And then I think when I started challenging myself, I got the confidence back. And when I quit the corporate world, honestly, I share a lot of lived experience in there, what goes behind the scene when you're leading the team, when you're women, power of, you know, a person of color and stuff like that. So when I started my business, there's no going back and just, you know, sitting down and not talking. Guys, I couldn't even write a single email by not redrafting. I would be Googling it. In a corporate world, nobody teaches you how to email people. How do you email executive? How do you solve the escalation? Copy CEO on it, right? You just have to learn it. And how do you deal with the escalation? I was an escalation supervisor at a time where the president office would be passing down those emails, and I'd be calling. And first thing in my mind is like, they can hear my accent. Oh my God, I'm going to screw. I can't, like, I would rather call someone than type an email, because I was like, oh my God, people are going to see my email and all grammar, right? I'm not going to be a good manager. I related my journey with the grammar and accent and English not being my first language. Nobody taught me. I had to pick up and just start learning things. Once I started this business, then I had to write every day. And every time I would write it, I would think there's going to be someone pointing, there's like, mistake in there. And I'm going to be a resume writer. Or like, I don't write resume. I teach how to write the resume because I know there are best people out there. If I give you directions, you know how to get it done, right? I barely write the resume. I got certified and I was like super happy. I'm like, okay, now I can write the resume as well, right? So now when one white person hired me who was an executive, who was my first ever white client, that gave me confidence. And I'm going to tell you this is anyone who actually empowers, especially if you're not their race, white people, women or men, you have no idea what that does to us, people like us, whose English is not the first language, who's not born in Canada. To me, that was a great motivation. And I started giving my content on YouTube just because people kept on asking me same questions. I'm like, I'm going to give the free resources. I would get the trolls on YouTube, like, get out of here, your accent, look at you, like, grammars and everything. But I could either stop, feel bad about myself, but I was like, hey, people are going to show up. So within 3 years, I went from 500 connections to over 200,000. And that gave me confidence. So if I were to say, how did I get it? It was my client. It was my follower. It was people like you who showed up on my feed. It was people like you who would invite me to the meeting. And, it was media reaching out to me, top media outlet reaching out to me saying that we want to hear from you. I was like, oh my God, really? Do you really want to hear from me? They're a great speaker. Why not them? I would question still. So I think it's all about you kill your insecurity when it comes to confidence. That's what worked for me.
Sweta, you brought up culture, which I think is an important question because first off, I want to point out the fact that all four of us are from Canada. So go poutine, go beaver tails. But secondly, we're all from diverse communities, right? So we're all people of color here, which I think is fantastic for diversity on this panel. But culture, I also think, has barriers. So I want to see if anybody want to talk about that. I mean, for women from certain cultures, right, there's always going to be challenges. I know, like even in my family, like my family's are Pakistani Muslim. There are sometimes women who are getting jobs, and it's like, okay, when are you going to stop doing that? So I want to see if anybody want to comment on that.
Sure. I'll go first. I mean, I don't talk about it very often, but yes, my descent is Japanese and Caucasian. And I'm thinking about this a lot recently because it was around this time 81 years ago that the Japanese internment took place. So definitely my childhood was colored by probably some systemic, like multi-generational trauma from that, but also some old school Japanese beliefs of women make the tea and the rice and do the dishes, So that's something that I had to fight against. I mean, my parents are very progressive, but there's some of that lingering in the background. And so that did color a bit of my own confidence that I had to work through as I was growing up. And I'm still thinking about the internment because it is a timely topic right now. So I'm going to do more exploring on that myself to see what comes up. But anyway, I'll pass it on.
Yeah, like one of the things, this is so interesting when it talks about culture and how that impacts confidence and, having grown up actually back and forth in Hong Kong and Canada, I was raised to not speak up, not rock the boat, or even when I started my business, like my mom was actually concerned that I'd be too ambitious, that no one will love me. Like my husband will no longer love me because I'm too ambitious. And so I grew up with a lot of these critics, I guess, of, don't do this because you're a girl, or you're not allowed to do this because of this, or if you do this, you're not going to be loved. And so I had to break a lot of, I said, where I get my confidence. Part of it is turning the pain into power, like turning those struggles into strength, turning these obstacles into opportunities, right? Of all these challenges you face, that we got to break this cycle or what we've been conditioned to and not let that hold us back. Like one of my most powerful transformations when I went through coaching training over 10 years ago was a coach called me out as that stop living to please your parents. that was a breakthrough moment. Like I just cried. I had these goosebumps and all that. I'm like, oh my God, like I've been living to try to be the best student to please my parents here versus living my own truth of what I really want to do as a coach and speaker. And so I think part of that is you have to work through some of these limiting beliefs or challenges that you've had growing up and how to break that cycle in order to step into your own truth, in order to do what's really truly fulfilling. So for me right now, like I'm really clear of my why. Like even if I get these negative concerns of parents or family members who love me, like I'm really clear why I do what I do. Like I'm clear on that, and I'm not going to let people get in the way for that there.
Stop pleasing my parents. I need to work on that. So that's a good philosophy.
Same.
I want to segue into another question because we want to make sure we get everybody. And if you're listening to this again, put your questions in. You can also tag us, ask questions after this, share the replays on your feeds. Like we'd love to get people to share this, retweet on Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. Just share the stuff. This is great. The other question I want to get into is really, let's talk about LinkedIn now, right? So I'll go with you, Camara. The challenges that women face on the LinkedIn platform. What are the challenges they're facing, and how can we help them and leverage LinkedIn better for their career growth?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that a lot of women are feeling held back from posting because it might go against what they were taught growing up, in that sharing successes might come across as bragging. And we see that a lot in job search, especially when I talk to my clients, a female client versus a male client. A female client is often crediting the team rather than themselves. So you can still credit the team while taking credit for your own contribution. And so I think it's really helping women get clear on what their own contributions were, rather than letting the team's success cloud the impact of their work, so that they can feel free to share successes on LinkedIn, build out great LinkedIn profiles that tell their stories, share where they've come from, share where they're now today, share where they're headed. And so it's just really getting in touch with those contributions, and remembering that skills and results are gender neutral. Like they're not, you are just as skilled as your male counterparts. You are just as you attain results just as your male counterparts would, and you should feel free to showcase what you're great at.
That's really good point. If you have the way that you're saying, and what I am thinking is, anyone watching this right now, the takeaway is, as a woman, is skill just does not differentiate. I'm going to give it to you, not to you, right? There's no gender biases when it comes to, like, naturally there is a biases, like physically. I don't think I know there are men out there, there are people out there, like, you want to be this, but you want us to, like, shovel the snow all night, and then you sit, I'm like, yes, I want my husband to shovel the snow because he's fit. He's physically fit. I'm not. I had 2 kids, right? We cannot compare that natural thing when it comes to gender gap, but when it comes to the hone skill that we can all learn it, that's a great point that you had. My thing is, when it comes to LinkedIn growth, and as you said, is we are so humble sometimes that we don't go out there and say, hey, I've done that, right? Even me, it applies to me as well. When my clients are doing amazing, when they're sending me, hey, I made this much, and I negotiated, I got multiple offers, which one I feel like, oh, you know what, should I share that on social media, right? But that's our collaboration together. And sometimes I would never forget it when client would send it to me saying that, thank you so much. And I would always say, it's all you, right? And someone told me, one of my mentor told me, is, it's not only them. Take that power back and say, you actually did that as well. It was a collaboration. Own that power back. It was collaboration. So this is where we lack, and we always go back. It's not me. Someone gives you a compliment, I have a hard time adjusting to it, and I would just come up with the stories. But you know what? But how many of us do that? But you know what? I did this. Someone gives you a compliment and says, thank you. you've done well. Like, it's amazing to see you like that. Now I have reflected back on my word of choice. Instead of just deflecting it, I would say, thank you. That was a lot of work. Go back with the positive, right? And I've started to apply on me. And that's how you do the, LinkedIn growth as well. Sing your song, because if you can provide the evidence, it's not bragging. You have testimonial. I have live from clients. People can show up for me and talk about it, right? I have a result, and still till this day, I still feel cringe when I'm posting my results on it, honestly. And that's me, that I'm going to have to work on it.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to add on to what you said, Sweta. So I know, instead of thinking that you were showing off your wins, think of how you're being of service.
Yes.
And adding value, right? This is something I teach a lot in concept of, instead of thinking about you, it's about also others, how you're being of service. And I have so many times, like when I share wins, when I look at it of helping other people, client wins, oftentimes, like we're talking about growth, like I'll have people reaching out, they're like, because of this story, because of this, you encourage me to reach out, or you inspire me to, I can do this as well. And so that's very encouraging. And so one thing I really love using LinkedIn. For me, that's my primary platform for growth. What I believe, this is like the quote, my quote here is that you have the upper hand when you have a great brand because you're more in demand. You have the upper hand when you have a great brand because you're more in demand, right? So part of, like with LinkedIn, is really building your brand where you are known, that you're seen, that you're that go-to expert. And in order to do that, you need to start sharing your voice, your story, your expertise, showcase that you're also collaborating, connecting with others as well, where people see that like you are active, you are giving back, and you are showcasing your point of view. Like even this past year, I would say only about 2 years ago that I really started being more vulnerable and sharing my own story. Like before that, I was just sharing more of my expertise. But what I believe that helped me also get to LinkedIn Top Voice last year was part of it, where I was starting to share my own struggles, my own story, so that people could relate to other. And then on top of that is also collaborating with others. And I would say just this past year for me, that I started to even be more courageous in speaking up on topics that I don't normally talk about, like around the topic around, let's say, Asian racism, for example. Like I was asked to facilitate a panel on that a couple of years ago, and I felt really uncomfortable doing that. Or recently, where I chose to speak out on this whole pay equity issue, because I was asked to speak for a International Women's Day event to MC for 5 hours for free. That's sponsored by multi-billion-dollar companies. Like when I shared that, I was like, I can't believe that. Like I was mad, I was angry, and I decided to turn that post into also raising awareness of this is what's actually happening, and we need to basically say no to it and not just accept that.
That's amazing. And I love it. The story, sometimes I think, to be honest, like I am who I am because of all the stories that I put it through as a newcomer, hiring manager. And as much as I hold hiring managers accountable, leadership team accountable from the corporate world, let's be real. I wrote the blog about it, article about it, how I've screwed up as a manager, how I put people on a PIP as a threat, right? How I could have done better. There are things I'm not proud about it as a person, as a manager, whatever was unconscious biases and everything. As long as I self-reflect and never do those things, we got to share that as well, right? Nobody learns this. Nobody teaches you. And then you got to go back and think about it. There are things I would never do. And when people actually look into it, it's like, I'm not only calling out people, but I'm calling out myself as well, holding accountable, saying that I've messed up. I'm sorry for those people. Like, I've messed up. You deserve better. That's why you quit on me. That's why you resign on me. That happens, and we need to talk about this. And I think when you come from that heart of like, I'm going to raise an awareness, not the venting sessions, and here's the solution for it, right? If you can call out everything you want, but if you don't have a solution, it's called whining, right? You can come up with the all those things that you went through, and here's what I could do differently. The solution, here's what I propose, and that turns into, okay, you know what? Someone listening could probably have that takeaway as well, right? And that's a great point, that we need to talk about it as a woman, be vulnerable. And some people don't like it. As a matter of fact, one of the coaches that who I no longer is a part of Tribe, she said, why do you always put the personal things? LinkedIn is not for personal. We were talking about 2-3 years ago. I would never do what you do. Like, I'm not comfortable. I won't do it. And I'm like, couple of years later, same coaches putting out like the vulnerable content. I'm like, you know what? People do their own thing. Do what it works for you, but never call out people. Why are you putting that, right? Because they have the reason to do it. Never invalidate people lived and tested experience, and support them.
I just want to come in and talk about the fact that we're having this amazing discussion with outstanding women who help women stand out. 3 amazing LinkedIn leaders, influencers, women who I admire and have collaborated with, and I'm really glad to have them here. This is run by the Thought Leadership Brand Club. We run the TLB Club live streams every month. We also do weekly audio rooms on LinkedIn, Twitter Spaces, and Clubhouse. And our goal is to really support people build their brands. So if you're want to learn more about our community and what we do and how we empower people, and especially empower women in our community, reach out to us. There's a great question that came from Cindy I want to ask, which was, I want to get the panel's insights on how ageism is impacting women in the corporate world today. Kamara, you want to start with that?
I mean, we know that the impact is there. We even see such high profile ageism issues like recently Lisa LaFlamme on CTV. I think it's CTV. I can never remember. Anyway, yeah. And so we know that it's an issue. But what I'd like to volunteer is we have strategies that we can use, especially in the job search, to mitigate the impact of ageism or the exposure to ageism. So there are solutions to try, but I also volunteer this. If an organization doesn't want to hire you because of your age, do you really want to be part of that organization? Do they value what you value? What's the downstream impact of that to their customers? Do you want to represent that company? So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Diana, what's your thought? I have
I'll let you go.
Okay, I'm saying with Kamara as well. We can only do so much as a person coming from the side as a job seeker. If you're looking for a job, you can only control things that you can't control. On a resume, we teach you all of that. All of us actually teach you that. Like, don't put the outdated tools. Don't give away where there is a biases and everything. But at the end of the day, you're going to be seen in interview. If the gray hair matters to them, it matters to them, right? Even if you color it, maybe the wrinkle matters to them. It's going to show up no matter what you do on resume. And I think upgrading yourself, and I'm not going to sit here and say, well, ageism is there. I know I'm not going to blame the employers only, but let's look at self-reflect ourselves as well. What have you done to improve your insight in the industry too, right? Have you upgraded? Are you meeting up with the current trend, labor market trends and everything, right? Why are they saying no? Is it blatantly biases that you can sense that you don't want to work for that employer? You're not the fit. I get the point, what Kamara is saying, right? But then if there's a reason that you were rejected, there's probably self-reflection. I can speak from my experience. I got laid off around 37 or something like that. And it was a banking industry. When I was looking at the people demographic, everyone was young. I reported to the younger manager. I definitely had an ego. I am here leading team for 10 years or something. And when someone's trying to coach you and that they're green, they don't know how to coach you, you kind of feel it. I'm like, who are you to coach me, right? But then sometimes sometimes our ego gets in there too. When you're old, you feel like this is how you do it. It's always been that way. It has to be my way. So we got to tame it down as well. I was one of them, type A personality. And we got to self-reflect and say, you know what, maybe it's not the right industry. I want to part on it. So I quit later on. It didn't work for me, right? So sometimes you have to go and pivot to the industry you love. And here I am today, and I'm exactly supposed to be here. So self-reflect and see if it's you, if it's them, it's the industry, it's probably not your age. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would just add other few things. I mean, really focus on what you can control. Like from a branding standpoint, is you're also focusing on your own brand image, your own appearance, how we appear as well. But I think from another standpoint, just from my experience as a recruiter, I've never heard of a hiring manager reject someone because they said it was their age. That's not something I've ever heard as a recruiter before. But I have heard things around is this person adaptable? right? Is this person coachable? Is this person able to learn the new technology, or they're learning what the latest thing that's happening? So I think part of it is showcasing, are you staying up to date with the latest trends? Are you really taking on sharpening new skills to make yourself more marketable and credible that way?
Let me just say before we can continue, I know that we're getting near to the hour here, but I do want to appreciate your contribution for this. These amazing women are taking their time out to share with us and share with the community, and this is live streaming everywhere. And also all the women around the world. Like, it's crazy. There's so many people from around the world, Greece, UK, and other places that are sharing their comments. So that I've been really glad to see so many people participate. I want to also ask each of you, tell us a bit more about what you're working on and where we can find you. Any programs. I want you to pitch. I want you to pitch yourself and let everyone follow these people. And they're all three of them are just amazing people. I'm just giddy. I'm just so giddy. I'm so excited to know you and so proud of you guys. And let's do a little bit of pitching. So we'll start with you, Sweta. Tell us what you're working on and how people can find you.
Sure. All these years I was focusing on one-to-one coaching. I really like the intimate coaching and everything, but because of that, there are a lot of impact that I've missed out, so I have sent away clients because they can't afford it. So what I'm busy doing is developing the self-paced digital course. One is out already. You can go and see it on my profile, resume writing course. It comes with so much that that's the same course that newcomers have landed multiple offers, dream job in Canada, right? Where they gave up and they're ready to go back home, right? And they were qualified. So the people who were leading the team back home, they were actually working survival jobs. And right after taking that courses and everything, they landed multiple offers. Now they're leading a team in top companies. So that's why I had to sit down and put my thought through with the hiring manager's perspective. What would I look for in resume, and what do I want as a hiring manager, and what would the newcomer want? What would the immigrant lack? What would the people when they're laid off lack, right? These are all my lived and tested experience with my clients and myself as well. So it's my baby. First course was out recently, very affordable, and it's going to be lifetime. So that's out there, and I'm working on the second course as well. That's what keeps me busy at night. And I'm partnering with the academic institutions like colleges and university internationally as well. So I'm developing courses for them as well right now as we speak. And I'm seriously looking forward to our mastermind led by our Diana, right, in Mexico and Cancun, and obviously going to shop some clothes for summer.
Diana, talk about that and all the other things you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I've been known in the space of supporting people in the career pivot space. So whether you are looking to pivot industry, pivot careers, or start your own business, that's really what I've been specializing in, particularly helping people who are seasoned professionals, people at least 10 plus years of experience, managers level and above. And what I love doing is really helping people, one, gain clarity of what they want to do next. Second is really coming up with their unique personal brand, like what really differentiates them and how to best market themselves effectively. And then lastly, I love interview coaching. So for those who are feeling stuck, if you haven't gone through interview in a while, or you've been through a layoff and not sure how to sell yourself, that's what I love doing, is setting yourself for success for that. I love doing interview coaching from the typical behavioral interviews to even case interviews. I love strategizing around that. I'm really good with that, or even pitch interviews. What I'm really working on now, and now that I've celebrated 12 years in business, where I'm heading is I am still doing some one-on-one coaching work for those who really want to get one-on-one with me. But second is I'm also doing more speaking and training this year. So I'm looking to do more corporate speaking in organizations of helping people with owning their voice, owning their value and visibility. For example, recently I spoke for a Fortune 500 company where their mission is to get more Asian leaders into management, because less than 5% of them are in management and a quarter of their employees are Asians. So I'm super passionate to be part of this change, where I can create programs and talks to help really elevate, more professional Asian professionals into management type of roles. And then this third piece, this mastermind, this is a passion project that started, this crazy vision of mine this past year, that what if I can bring together like-minded people, women together, where I can support them. And I know with the pandemic, I really miss that face-to-face interaction. So I just had this crazy thought, like, what if I can pick like a luxury resort, all inclusive, where I can bring people together, where we have powerful conversations, professional growth, and personal wellness. So you get to learn, you get to talk, and you get to relax. And so that's what this is all about. And it's really all about elevating each other. We have a great community. I'm looking to create more mastermind events in the coming years. Like I have this other big crazy vision where I bring together content creators, like people I've met on LinkedIn, host some sort of big retreat somewhere, like maybe like Hawaii or something, or Vegas or something in the coming years. That's what I love to do. I love to bring my event planning and I just love connecting with people, like that expertise of bringing people together there.
Awesome. Kamara.
Nice. I can't make it to Cancun, Diana, but I'm in for
I'm gonna
Hawaii.
miss you.
I know we'll miss you. We definitely like. When I heard that you're not joining, I was like, Kamara, come on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My little one is just too little to go, but to leave. Yeah, for me, what am I doing? I'm really plugging away on resume writing, working with clients one-on-one. I do work with a lot of career changers, people who make some pretty wild career changes. I love to work in that sweet spot, but also people who are looking for their next level up or next adventure in their career. I write resumes as well as LinkedIn profiles for my clients. But I'm also working on my YouTube channel, and it's growing slowly but surely. So you can find me over there. I'm testing out the TikTok, but I'm not as prolific as Sweta or Diana. But I'm testing it out. I did have something go viral at 2.9 million views, so that was
2.9 already?
Wow.
Yeah. They sent it out. TikTok pushed it out twice, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" Anyway, it got me a bunch of new followers, and then I was like, I don't know what to make now. But so I'm testing TikTok out, trying to create more short, bite-sized videos for folks to help them move their job search game forward. I saw a comment from someone called Home Team on YouTube saying they wish they could find people like us who know the US rules and not Canadian rules. All of us take on US clients, US-based clients. Right, Sweta, you take on US-based clients?
Yes, I do. I'm internationally, but I do work with US and Canada as well. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I have UK clients too in Asia. Yeah.
Great. And I work with clients everywhere across the globe except Europe at the moment. So yeah, if you need our help, reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to help you. There's a lot of similarities between career and job search across Canada and the US. In fact, I would say way fewer differences between our two countries in that respect.
Yeah,
so
thinking about it, like the state's law, probably don't ask me the law, like questions.
Yeah, don't ask law.
I lived in States for a bit. My husband actually graduated in States and he got laid off, and that's why I came to Canada. So that's how I know the state market. But then I have a lot of family members. As a Canadian, you can have TN visa and then go to work in US. My husband has done that as well in IT contract roles. So I know like a lot of stuff because of that as well.
Yeah.
And I know that some of you may have to go, and if we have to go, you can certainly just sign off, and that's fine. I did want to ask though, if you're able to ask this question. A lot of women have been engaging, commenting, but I also want you to talk to the men and the allies. I want to understand what your message for them is. So, Diana, can you go first with that? And maybe talk about what's your message for the men or the potential allies around the topics we've discussed today.
Got it. I'm actually good for time. I got my husband to pick up the kids. He's my ally.
Oh, yay! Okay, that's what I was worried about. I was like, Diana, she's gonna go.
I just messaged him like, could you get the kids? I was like, I was gonna have to run, but I was like, can you go? Yeah, so he's gonna do that. So I'm good for time right now. I think my message for allies, I think part of it is it's listening, understanding the challenges, understanding the needs, asking like, how can we support you, advocating for each other, right? I think just like featuring each other. I think that's so important. Like just the part of that is showcasing that. It's not just showing the support, but actually doing it, like doing the work as well. Like I love like with my husband, for example, like he pitches in, like we're really 50-50 in the household there. And he really supports me. Like I told him I have a live and I was like, I don't know if I can get the kids. And like, if you can do it, that's great. And he's coming back from the office, like to drive to go pick up the kids. So that would be my message. Something I want to mention here that we were talking about earlier is around, we talk about collaboration over competition. And I want to talk about the audience who mentioned that, you know, we wish some of us are in the US. I would say like reach out. Like if any of us resonated with you today, feel free to reach out, because one thing I do know, if I'm not the right coach for you, I'm pretty sure I can recommend someone else for you, like within my own network.
Totally.
Like for example, like if I have someone who's like a newcomer to Canada, not the right fit for me, I'm gonna refer to Sveta. Like with Kamara, if someone wants to do resume writing, I don't do that. I'm gonna recommend to her. And in fact, I know like over the years, like Kamara, you and I, like we partnered for like 3 years or so, where we worked on like collaboration together, where we had a combo service of writing and coaching service. So I'm pretty sure like if we're not the right one, like I always like to be helpful. Like even this past weekend, I was talking to alumni who I haven't talked to for like almost 20 years. He recommended his wife to me. And while I may not be the right one, I want to be helpful. I want to still be helpful. So I recommend someone else who's doing like more group coaching program on career clarity. So that's a message too when we talk about collaboration, is that for us as coaches, that we should also get to know each other of different offerings, who their target audience is, the different price points, so that we can also serve different people as well there.
That's a great point, Diana. Like, you know, I think I want to put it out there is personally, I know great coaches, great, like, you know, business entrepreneur, they're okay to self-disqualify. I like, you know, I'm not for everybody and I'm okay with that. When that comes in, I would have a network and I would say, I'm not the right one. This is why you got to go out there. And here's the thing, right? And that's what the right people do, because it's an investment for yourself as well, right? I'm not going to go and test it out on you if I don't feel comfortable, we're not connected well, right? And I think I do the same way as well. Something happens, like I don't really love resume writing, and it takes a lot of time for me as well. And I don't have that much time because I do so many things. And I'm like, you know what? I know who am I going to reach out? I'm going to probably give it to Kamara. I'm like, hey, I don't have this. Like, you know, do you want to go ahead and do this, right? Because I know I'm going to give you the best one out there, not for like whatever, right? That's a great point there. Thanks for saying that. I want to talk about one more thing that I think if anyone's watching right now, especially the people who are consultant, who are speaker, who want to go out there and put like, you know, speak on a stage or something. I want to talk about one incident that happened to me. And then like we talk about it in our mastermind group all the time. When it comes to pricing strategy, it's really extremely hard to actually go and like, okay, what do I charge? Because the companies are going to say, what's your budget? And when you're new, you have no clue what's your budget, because they will ask for so many scope that you might not even be aware of it. There's a contract, there's things that you have to. So since I've done so many, like now I'm like, you know, okay, you know what? There's so much gap in there. You don't understand like how the contracts are formed, like how you can negotiate everything. I want you to think about it as a job. Everything in a contract, you can negotiate everything, right? Reach out to the people like, you know, who's done that. And we're not going to say, I'm not going to share. Honestly, I've shared things, transparency, like this is what we have done. And like, this is a great group that we have as a women. This is how we are supporting one another. I can reach out to Kamara and say, hey, do you know, like, you know, Diana does the same thing too, you know, and then Bobby, I reached out to Bobby when I had B2B contract ready to go. And Bobby gave me like, Bobby hopped on the call and so like, you know, we talked about it and I was like, hey, that makes me feel better. I'm not like, you know, under budget, right? So I think you need to talk to people before actually agreeing to the budget. I tell you that, right? So we don't have that community in Canada so much, but this is where we are committed. Reach out to us and we'll share.
Yeah, so important. One of my biggest insight recently is I've learned as a speaker, the budget in Canada and versus the US is so different.
Yes.
It's terrible. Well, I mean, I've been speaking for many, many years. I can say it's 3-1. Like in the U.S., it's triple the amount you'll get for Canada. So it's always been a challenge. And yeah, when Sweta reached out to me, again, that's my expertise, and so that's how I help people. I'm happy to talk about those things from a speaker standpoint. And having coached lots of speaker women, you know, they often will undersell themselves, and so we have to like, you know, think about, you know, the value, what you're worth, things like that. I want to make sure Kamara gets a chance to speak to the men and the potential allies. So what's your message for them?
Yeah, I would say for the men, so Diana already addressed the listening part. The other thing I would say is speak speak up for women. So advocate for women, particularly in the workplace. So yeah, when you see something is inequitable, make sure that you give that a voice and help a fellow female colleague along.
I'm very passionate about this because I would say to men, and I'm going to tell a man, educate yourself, inform yourself, and understand your biases, because you all have them. That's a fact, guys. You all have biases, and you need to figure this out and try to let go of them or wrench them away from yourself internally, because a lot of men have a lot of work to do in terms of understanding what women go through on a daily basis and what we can do to champion and empower women. So that segues, I think, to my last question, which is really, what are some strategies and that we can use to help women, and women from diverse backgrounds better support themselves, be represented in workplaces and communities? Open question. What do you guys think about that?
I think we can't just assume. Like, I think what popped up for me, I'm thinking not just women, but also men too, like especially from diverse backgrounds, like people who don't speak up at work or quiet work. We can't just assume that they're not ambitious or they're not leadership material. I mean, like that kind of bias. I think we need to really go deeper and find out, like, how can we groom them? How can we develop them? How can we also give them a voice and a seat at the table as well? Like, I have a client right now, actually a male client, but who is Asian, and he has a hard time speaking up at work. And I know part of it's a culture. And so I think it's very important that we seek to understand and look at ways of how we can also encourage that we all have a voice as well, and not make these assumptions that they're not leadership potential on there. Yeah. I just want to add one thing, Bobby. You said the 3-to-1 difference, Canada, US. You'll be so proud that I actually raised my price by 3x with my latest US gig with a big company.
Yay, that's awesome.
So it was reassuring to know it's like a 3-to-1 difference. I was like, okay.
Approximately 3-to-1, yeah.
Well done.
Tamara, what do you think?
Sorry,
Samantha, go ahead.
So to add to the piece that Diana was saying, just because someone is not speaking up, that doesn't mean that, like there are introvert as well. There's introvert, there's extrovert as well. And there's someone in between as well, right? And I think when it comes to workforce, let's tackle one thing at a time. So workforce, not everyone works for money. Everyone has the motivation. Yes, we all love money. I loved money in the corporate world as well, but more than that, I loved my career. I want to climb up the ladder. I wanted those promotions, which I got it. So I've taken the task for exposure. As much as I sit down and say I shouldn't have done that, but I've done it, right? So who are we to judge people when they're actually doing the free work? I've done the free work as a newcomer in Canada. I worked at IBM, guys. Okay, apprentice. They could have paid me, but they didn't pay me. But then that's how I hone my skills and I develop the clarity. Sometimes when we tell people don't do this, don't do that, it might not work for them. It needs to be customized, and we have no idea what story they have. They have bills to pay. Sometimes they might have to take up the job that it's toxic. They cannot afford to quit. Just because I quit twice, that doesn't mean that everyone should be quitting. Just because I'm in this business, that doesn't mean that everyone should be doing this business, right? So listen to all of us, but at the same time, we're not the one who's going to live through your journey. You have your story, you have your journey, and you know what's better for you. And one thing I want to tell people is do not take advice from those people who have never walked a mile in your shoes when it comes to like, hey, can I do this? And try to understand what the person did. It might not be the same exact thing that you want to do as well, right? So seek advice, but at the end of the day, you are accountable for making a decision, because I'm not the one who's going to be responsible for what you choose to do, right? And that's how, you probably want to be partnering with the right type of people alive, right? Right type, right tribe, that that they have the best interest, right? They're going to guide you. They're going to not sugarcoat you. Right? It's not about sugarcoating. I want Diana to tell me, sometimes some things happen. Diana to tell me strategically, hey, what are your thoughts on it? I think it would be done this way. What are your thoughts, right? Not putting me down, but helping me understand. You want that kind of people in your life too. You don't want just yes man. Like if I reach out to Diana says, like Kamara says all the time, yes, Sweta, you're always right. I'm like, you know what? I'm not thinking. I need someone to hold me accountable as well. And while I have my husband and I have my daughter and, you know, teen son holding me accountable all the time, but that helps me reflect. I'm like, oh, they're right? Because we need to be surrounded by those kind of people as well at the same time to self-reflect. We all are learning at the same day. I'm an expert. She's an expert. Kamara is an expert. Bobby's an expert. But at the end of the day, we don't know everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Kamara, go ahead.
Yeah. What was the last question, Bobby? It was about
what are things we can do to champion and support women in diverse communities and workplaces?
Right. Okay. So I think that mentorship is a underutilized relationship. So I would encourage people who want to be mentors or those who want to be mentored to connect with each other. I think there are a lot of people out there who have a lot to teach, a lot to share, and no one's asking them. So just really seek out a mentor or seek out someone to mentor if you have something that you want to share or a legacy that you want to leave. Yeah, I think mentorship is something that we can really leverage to help diverse women of diverse backgrounds along a bit more. To Diana's point earlier about people not speaking up but shouldn't be looked over for or shouldn't be forgotten in terms of promotions or leadership potential. So she was speaking about maybe people who are a little more introverted or quiet. Same goes for folks who are neurodivergent. We need to give consideration to folks who are neurodivergent who work maybe differently than neurotypical folks, and make sure that we are adapting work so that they can excel and make best use of their own strengths, because we all benefit from it when they can.
I love how you talked about mentorship, because I mean, the topic is outstanding women help women stand out. And the three of you have done a marvelous job of doing that. I want to thank you each for being here. I want to tell everyone to make sure you follow them. And to let you guys know that, you know, we do this every month on the second Wednesday of the month at 2:30 p.m. We also do weekly rooms on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, LinkedIn Audio, Thursday at 2 o'clock, LinkedIn Audio. We do social selling on LinkedIn Audio on 4 o'clock on Fridays. And then, of course, I do Twitter Spaces, and sometimes Sweta shows up, and maybe I can get you guys to show up too. And we do Clubhouse rooms as well. So I do want to mention that since we are in Canada, we're actually doing our first Toronto LinkedIn Local meetup of the year. It's basically taking LinkedIn Local digital to live in person. We're actually doing an event on March 30th, and it's the topic is going to be the rise of cancel culture. So if you want to come there and meet and network with lots of amazing professionals, that's on March 3rd. You can check that out. As well, the Thought Leadership Brand Club is also hosting another event on how to land a TEDx talk, which is going to be on March 29th. So follow the Thought Leadership Brand Club page across all the channels, but on our LinkedIn page. And again, these three women are amazing. I'm grateful to call you all my friends. I would love to see you guys again sometime soon. I know Dana's in the sort of local area, and Kamara and Sweta are just a bus ride away. So maybe there's a chance to meet up sometime soon. But thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. It's been
thank you for hosting this, Bobby.
No, my pleasure. All right, let's stay in touch. And if you have any questions and you after this, just comment in the comment boxes or retweet or reply. Tag the different speakers that are here. I'm sure they'll respond to it. Just ask those questions. Share the replays on your profiles. And this is one of the best live streams we ever had. So I'm super, super grateful to have it. And of course, have an amazing International Women's Day and have a really strong Women's History Month. Get the message out there. Be allies. Be supportive. And put the message out there. Thanks so much for being thought leaders, and we'll see you guys soon.